This is truly one of the most exciting ages in history, the era of the space probes and the preparation for moon landings, the time of computers that think faster and better than man himself. When a missile streaks toward a planned target, it is being guided by complex and mysterious controls on the ground. When man probes outer space, he is able to send back a verbal picture of what he sees. Small transistors, some so tiny they can sit on the edge of a pin, now make some of the most intricate control systems nearly pocket size. Almost silently, a giant computer digests information and reports its findings back to man. These are exciting times in which we live, perhaps the most progressive times in history. And in every phase of this electronic age, our Minnesota has a giant share. Thus, we chose for our WCCO television report tonight the progress of this period with the emphasis on electronics, the Minnesota giant. Our present time has been endowed with two equally impressive titles: the space age for the adventurous, world-minded individuals, and the electronic age for those who observe our entire way of life. The electronic age is no less glamorous than the space age. In fact, electronics play a major role in any space exploration. Tonight, we consider the electronic age in which we're living, with specific attention to the part played by the industrial giants and the not-so-giant in our state. This is part of our story. It's a plane used in a memory system which controls the thinking of a computer or other data processing equipment. This plane's function is to store up bits of information. There are 4,000 tiny cores strung into this plane, each core capable of accepting one letter or number. 4,000 bits of information on this small card. When we speak of the ultimate in electronic machinery, we mean the huge computers. Minnesota is fast becoming one of the computer centers of the world, and its reputation increases each day. The two most recent and most important national announcements concerning electronics involves a $10 million data communication system and a $200 million contract for research and development on the Nike X anti-missile missile. Minneapolis Honeywell will build the communication system, and UNIVAC of St. Paul will provide the computer for the Army contract. In our first look at the electronics industry, we will start small. The item is called a logic card. The company is Janssen Electronics of St. Paul. Janssen is fast growing out of the small company category. Nearly 1/3 of the 170 Minnesota electronics producers and suppliers employ less than 25 people. A single card roughly represents the work formerly done by vacuum tubes and wire circuits about the size of a table radio. When completed, this card, along with several hundred or thousand others, will fit into a predetermined spot on a computer or processing machine. When used in the computers, these cards will provide the instantaneous addition, subtraction, and multiplication for the systems as the computer seeks to find a record somewhere in its storage. The product turned out looks something like a playing card, only smaller, with two or perhaps complex transistors. We'll talk a little later about the quick response of these computers and how the various Minnesota-built systems store and search for their information. It's important to note early that the electronics industry in this area is a healthy one. There are still some business mortalities, but there's also great strength. This is part of a new venture of the Janssen Company. It's a circuit board designed to give the junior high school student a basic course in electronics. According to a text, also supplied by the St. Paul firm, hundreds of experiments may be performed, with the ultimate being a workable radio receiver. By finding their own product, the Janssen people have helped to solidify their company. They are one of perhaps a dozen companies in this area supplying the logic cards to the larger computer companies. Using a dime for a size bearing, we can get an idea of how small the tiny cores are. 4,000 of these make up one plane. No matter what shape the memory planes take, the function is the same. to provide a strong ground for a memory system. The second plane has even smaller cores. They will help for man to dictate to the computer's brain what rules must be followed in completing its mission. And this is a memory stack, 25 memory planes. A newer and faster means of transmitting the instructions comes in the use of thin film memory planes, which are 10 to 100 times faster than cores. This is a small memory system constructed by Fabritech of Minneapolis. Although capable of performing many memory functions, it is minute compared to memory systems found in computers. This uses a stack of 25 core planes worth approximately $4,000. Fabritech is listed as an electronic component manufacturer, as are about 60 Minnesota companies, and like the majority of companies in the state, deals in national and international sales. From the small memory system, we take a giant step into the field of computers. This is Control Data's world-famous 3600 computer. With headquarters in the Twin Cities, Control Data has expanded at a fantastic rate. Until a short time ago, this 3600 had been the world's largest computer. In computer terms, largest generally refers to the load it can handle as well as its physical size. The 3600 lost its title recently, but Control Data kept the title with its 6600 computer. Incidentally, the price of the old champ is $3 million. A feature of this and most computers is central control of the entire system. The newest unit, the 6600, is much faster, but approximately the same size as this 3600. To buy the 6600 would take about $7 million. To rent it, and that's the accepted way, would cost about $175,000 a month. Tape is the most common storage unit. A special typewriter reports to the operator. Insurance companies, banks, large volume businesses, and governmental organizations are the chief users of computers. Remember the small logic cards that guide the computer's movement? Several small companies working at full production are needed to supply the thousands of cards demanded by each computer system. The latest and most unique recording systems are used in our area computers. UNIVAC, with over 5,000 employees in its Minnesota operation, has introduced the magnetic drum. The surface of the drum contains the data. Floating read and write heads surrounding the drums come in contact with the drum head, picking out the desired bits of information and storing it until the computer acknowledges that it has the entire word. The flying drums and whirling tapes take much of the spotlight away from the card system. This UNIVAC card system has 960 possible punching positions for each card. Light passing through the punches and striking solar cells allows the card to transmit an electrical impulse and thus be read or recorded. With its catalog of more than 60 different products, UNIVAC calls upon nearly 2,000 smaller suppliers to make various component parts. The Twin Cities area is fast becoming known as the showroom for the latest data processing equipment. International Business Machines, or better known as IBM, has been in Minnesota for nearly 50 years. Its latest data processing system is just being released this month. An IBM systems engineer, and that, by the way, is the young lady, shows off the new 1440. A film disc pack is one of its features. This is one of the most compact units offered and primarily designed for the smaller volume businesses. It rents on an average of $3,500 a month. This type of machine is especially effective with payroll inventories, accounts receivable, and such. All the information on a disc pack can be read in about 2 minutes. While one operator supervises the completion of the system's mission, a complete staff would be needed to manually fulfill the job. An important function of units, such as IBM, involves the instruction of customers in the operation of the various systems. A card reader, such as this machine, can digest the pre-punched cards at a rate up to 400 cards a minute. The operator can call for and receive a printed report at a speed of up to 600 lines a minute. The program is executed by the operator, who has the ability to alter any record or write into the system storage by way of a special printer. Accuracy demanded of these machines has led IBM to set up a special tape testing center in St. Louis Park. Over a dozen quality control tests are conducted at this center. Any slight imperfection could mean a loss of accuracy in a system or a loss of time because a rerun was needed. Tapes for IBM operations through the country are checked in this Minnesota center. When we speak of tape, it's natural, of course, to turn to the company known worldwide for its tape products. In 1910, a small sandpaper company moved its operations from Duluth to St. Paul, and thus began the upward climb of Minnesota mining and manufacture, better known as 3M. Its Scotch brand tapes, as you well know, range from computer use to audio recording to the greatest boon, of course, to modern-day television videotape. Not only has the company's fame spread worldwide, its operations have too. Well over 30,000 persons are employed in 3M plants elsewhere in this country and in foreign subsidiaries. 3M has approximately 11,000 employees in Minnesota. Scotch brand is the world's largest supplier of videotape, generally the conventional 2-inch size. Now this is a preview of the 1-inch tape. The recorder, also new, is manufactured by a California company. The picture perfectly clear, no trouble with the set. The lines running through the picture represents the difference when a film camera operating at 24 frames a second takes movies of a TV screen which operates at 30 frames per second. Remember the old kinescopes on television? They had that same line. It was just 12 years ago that the first videotape machine was demonstrated. Videotape, with its clarity and live appearance, has virtually meant the end to live comedy and situation programs on the networks. During the summer schedule, when the nation is divided between daylight and standard times, videotape often records a live network program and then plays it back an hour later for more suitable timing for the western part of the country. At 3M, experiments still go on with the larger 2-inch tape. Recent results have aided in splicing and editing sound portions of the tape. As you may or may not know, no picture shows on the tape, which makes editing difficult. Here at WCCO Television, videotape is used for commercials, special programs, news, interviews, anything and everything that does not demand live coverage. In fact, tonight's program, due to the fact that we use 2 film projectors, several musical transcriptions, and a full studio, is also on videotape. We'll continue tonight's report on electronics, the Minnesota giant, in just 1 minute. And at the halfway point in tonight's WCCO television report, we pause to ask, what is the definition of electronics? Well, the definitions are almost countless, some as complex as the electronics field itself. We did find one definition which may be broken down into 2 parts, which seems to be true to the point. Quote, electronics is the science and technology that deals primarily with the devices that collect, process, and transmit information in the form of electrical signals. And the second part states that these electrical signals either control machines or present the processed information to human beings for their direct use. Electric switches are all around us. They no longer seem mysterious. Neither does the wonder of radio and television signals flying through the air only to be captured by electrical power and transformed into sound and picture. But what is most important is that electronics is now in so many fields, and what used to be automated is now super-automated. Some of our most accepted source of this electronic wonder are now faster and smaller. And this is a table model radio, which operates on 8 vacuum tubes. And this is a modern printed circuit board with transistors replacing those 8 tubes. And here, this little thing, this is a tiny circuit box with its minute transistors and resistors which may replace the circuit card. It is now being developed by Fabritech of Minneapolis. And of course, we mustn't forget the space age. Computers and checkout memory systems are used in every phase of space development. Minnesota companies have found a hand and had a hand in this development, whether it be a civilian effort, Army, Navy, or Air Force. Minneapolis Honeywell is currently working on 3 manned space flights. In World War II, Honeywell built the first electronic automatic pilot, and today supplies control systems for every major space program. This particular work in this mock-up is for the Apollo program. Honeywell's job is to build the stabilization and control system for the sections which actually transport the 3-man Apollo crew to the moon and back. Day after day, Honeywell engineering teams put the mock-up through every conceivable type of test to check their systems. Space flight seems a long ways away from the company's beginning back in 1885, when a young Minneapolis man, Al Butz, invented the first home thermostat. That invention marked the beginning of automatic heating in America and started a company which today numbers 48,000 employees, 18,000 in Minnesota alone. It's estimated that Honeywell produces about $150 million worth of electronic units each year in its Minnesota plants. This is a section of the Minneapolis assembly of high-powered germanium transistors. These are being made to Air Force specification. From etching the plates to the fusing of the metals, the Minneapolis unit handles the transistors. Another Honeywell advancement, still being developed, incorporates numerous transistors, resistors, and other components onto a single silicon chip, smaller than a pinhead. Minnesota and Florida units are working on that particular development. Back in 1946, a group of ex-Navy scientists founded Engineering Research Associates in St. Paul. By 1952, the young company was purchased by Remington Rand. The St. Paul company was formed into UNIVAC, one of today's chief developers of computers for the various branches of service. The Navy currently holds a large contract with UNIVAC for an advanced Navy computer. Installed aboard ship, the computer automates the offensive and defensive actions of an entire task force. Here it picked the missile to be fired and its target. UNIVAC ranks as the largest computer manufacturer in Minnesota and one of the state's largest employers. When the Echo Satelloon, Tyrus, Telstar, and Explorer satellites were launched, St. Paul-built UNIVAC computers guided them. Final checking, including supervision by Navy inspection teams, is completed in St. Paul. Total inspection time is generally close to 100 hours. The computer can make a decision in a microsecond as to defending against an attack. Although its decision is relayed to Fire Control Center, the actual fire command is left in the hands of an officer. The work carried on at UNIVAC and other electronic centers of our state strengthens Minnesota's claim of being the fastest advancing electronic area of our nation. Why Minnesota is developing into such an electronics giant may be attributed to many things. First of all, we had several of the larger companies here from earlier times, companies which helped to pioneer electronics. The area was also built up during World War II with government contracts, and today Minnesota offers a plentiful supply of high-grade talent to work in electronics. IBM's new plant in Rochester employs 2,600 people. This is one of the few breakaways from the Twin Cities area for a major company. Litton Industries of California plans to expand its Duluth operation soon to 1,500 persons. And at IBM's Rochester operation, some 25 models of unit record and banking equipment are manufactured. Minnesota has a good climate for business growth, as many of these company yearly reports indicate. This one is Transistor Electronics Corporation, Minneapolis, in existence 5 years, a 30% increase in sales over last year. Transistor Electronic Corporation employs 250 people and produces mostly component parts for the larger computer and data processing companies. The biggest story of national growth in the electronics field belongs to the Twin Cities, the home of Control Data Corporation. Its stock is listed on the New York market, and with present plans calling for vast expansion, the future is indeed bright. In the past 6 years, the company's sales have moved from 1 million to 63 million a year. The growth of the company's employees has been phenomenal, from 300 in 1958 to the present record of 3,500. Computer manufacturing in the Twin Cities plant includes over 200 workers on the assembly line. Circuit boards are hand-wired and soldered. Well over 50,000 Minnesotans are employed directly by electronics companies. Although the circuit boards, logic cards, and other small units are purchased from smaller companies, Control Data does the actual assembly in its Minneapolis plant. The assembly ranges from complex circuits to microscopic units. Although women make up the bulk of assembly work, overall employment of men and women averages out with the large number of male technicians and engineers. The salary range is wide, with the average coming to better than $5,500 a year. Although control data computers are sent throughout the world from the Minneapolis division, the company now owns subsidiary companies in Australia, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, West Germany, and France. Some of these machines are destined for commercial use, others will be used in military operations. Minnesota recently received the promise of even more fame in the electronics field with the establishment of the North Star Research and Development Institute. Some of the electronics' most significant discoveries have come from such groups. The Minneapolis-based organization hopes to employ 1,000 persons when it reaches full strength. Although electronics will not be the center's sole field, it will be a major work due to Minnesota's potential in this area. Preliminary studies indicate that Minnesota's winter climate isn't especially detrimental to prospective businesses. Research, of course, is already underway in this area by private industries and the University of Minnesota. North Star will supplement much of the current research in the area. The Institute's work will generally come under two classifications: solving problems supplied by private companies and government, and generating ideas at the Institute which may be sold to industry or government as research projects. Basically, the group will study the problems and the needs in the further development of this area. Now, lest we give the impression that electronics is the science of the mysterious and the supercomputers, we need to take a quick look at some of the commercial products. This particular display includes products made by Telex Corporation, which has plants at Glencoe, Mankato, and Rochester, and a regional headquarters in Minneapolis. These products are built by the company's 1,200 employees. Now, this is one of the company's latest hearing aids. Incidentally, the Twin Cities area is one of the nation's largest producers of hearing aids. Here we have one of the most compact hearing aids offered today for those who wear glasses. The entire set is in this frame: microphone, radio set, small tuner. Also, products of Minnesota, we have extra sensitive earphones. Over there we have the pillow speaker for nighttime television listening. And finally, a very compact little switch used commercially and for various space instruments. Needless to say, Telex is a stable company with nearly $34 million in sales last year. 50,000 television sets each year roll off the assembly line of another company in the electronics field, Setchell Carlson of New Brighton. The assembly of black and white and color television sets at the plant now keep 300 people busy. Soon, production of the new color sets will increase, and the employment figure will be up to 400. Some color sets. The availability of a qualified labor force in Minnesota has helped to bring in new industries to the state. The upper Midwest area of 7 states offers 135 colleges and universities. The University of Minnesota holds a high ranking in education in this field. 33 vocational schools in the area train well over 8,000 students in electronics each year. Minnesota has the largest share of these schools, 13, and almost half of the total enrollment. Television, electronics, mathematics, computers are all courses offered. Minnesota has several other factors in its favor. First of all, the high school dropout rate is one of the lowest in the nation. Those entering the industrial field need a high school education if they're to advance. The area also ranks high in selective service tests, with fewer Minnesotans being rejected for armed service than any other state. These scenes were shot at the Dunwoody Institute, now beginning its 50th year. 5 well-known industrial schools are located in our Twin Cities area. The graduates of these schools will be found in nearly every major electronics company in this area. And although certainly no infant, the electronics industry is still fresh, and its growth is as yet unlimited. The electronics industry in Minnesota today is a strong one, world respected, and the climate for future growth is just as healthy here as anywhere else in the world. The literacy rate is high, general intelligence is good, as evidenced by the top ranking of the Minnesota men called into service. The availability of outstanding research and development centers, private as well as public, is certainly a feature of Minnesota. And in other areas, such as community relations, transportation, schooling, recreation, the state has been given a good rating. There are approximately 170 firms in Minnesota engaged in the production of various electronic items. About 50,000 people work for companies which have employee lists ranging all the way from a handful up to Honeywell's 18,000. Every type of electronic product imaginable is turned out at these plants. And in several fields, auditory aids and computers, Minnesota is regarded as a national and world leader. It may come as quite a revelation to the industrial centers of our coasts to learn that the heart of the Midwest farm area is also an electronic giant. But versatility is a must in this developing age of ours. Other sections of the country which try to survive on one product alone have found that their economy can be crippled by a relatively short period of misfortune. Minnesota is not only keeping up with the present, but it is building for the future. WCCO Television Reports is a public affairs presentation of the WCCO Television News Department.